Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into another episode of the Miguez Mindset, where today we're going to be talking some LSU football with our guy Zack Nagy from Sports Illustrated LSU Country. Zach, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. So, SEC Media Days in full swing right now. Today's the last day. Obviously, Brian Kelly led it off on Monday. And the big talk throughout Nashville was Jayden Daniels coming back for a second year, one of just a few returning starters in the SEC. Currently second in the Heisman odds preseason. I mean, say what you want about preseason odds, but that's something interesting to look at. Are you buying the Heisman hype with Jayden Daniels? Does he deserve, in your opinion, to be in that second place spot?
It's hard not to kind of buy into it just because of his play style. An explosive guy with his legs. He's continuing to work on arm as well to push the ball vertical. It's hard not to buy into the hype. He's improved. He improved on a week by week basis in 2022. This offseason, he was coming back and forth from California. He was on the West Coast, working on his arm, working with several other quarterbacks, including Bryce Young. So he's been putting in the work this offseason just to continue elevating the status of his throwing motion is something that's been a real concern for some people. And I feel like over time, it's continued to improve in several different ways. And if he can continue to balance the rushing and the passing attack, I see no reason why he couldn't put himself in the Heisman conversation. Of course, number 2 is pretty high on that list. But, all in all, I'm going to buy into the hype. I think Jayden Daniels is going to put it all together this year, and it's going to be a very, very good year for him.
Now, when you look at a guy like Jayden Daniels, came over from Arizona State, had some starting experience with the Sun Devils before coming to LSU, how would you grade year one with Brian Kelly here in Baton Rouge and kind of just the way the offense flowed as a whole last year with Daniels leading everything?
I think it was just a complete work in progress once again. The offensive line troubles plagued the offense as a whole for the first couple of weeks of the season. You had true freshmen on the line. You had a lot of inexperience, and it was kind of, it took a lot of time to develop some continuity. And then fast forward to around that week 7, week 8 mark, and they put it together. They found the offensive line rotation that fit them very well. You saw Jayden Daniels become more comfortable in the pocket. As continuity formed, the offense shined, and it kind of came together relatively quickly. The rushing game was working really well. Josh Williams stepped into the fold and was just very dynamic for this program. And as the rushing attack began to come into its own, there was less predictability when it came to throwing the football to Malik Neighbors, Kayshon Boutte, and whatnot. So as the offense kind of grew, it really all started with the big guys up front. And as they kind of fell into their own, the offense did its thing. I think it's going to be a very, very positive year for this offense in 2023. Just because continuity's formed, you return a lot of experience, and the offensive line, you're returning all 5 of your guys. So it's big time. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, you brought up the offensive line, struggled to find some identity, tons of inexperience there. Was kind of the crutch of the offense last year, but it's kind of done a complete 180, Zach, where some people could argue that your offensive line might be your biggest strength coming into 2023.
And I don't disagree with that take at all. Will Campbell is just an absolute menace up front. He's a complete dog. Started as a true freshman. You had Emory Jones on the other side at right tackle as well, true freshman. So you have experience with your youngsters now. You bring in some veterans. You're returning, some big key pieces here. I mean, there's no reason why this offensive line couldn't be the best in the SEC at given some time. But I have a problem with the guys up front heading into the season at all.
Yeah, 102 career starts with your offensive line. Now, the running back room is another group that I think got better. Obviously, Josh Williams had a big year last year. Noah Cain, Armani Goodwin battled some injuries, but showed some flashes when he was available. And now you bring in a guy like Logan Diggs, who is super familiar with Brian Kelly's offense and what the Tigers are going to be trying to do here in 2023. And also, you really can't forget about Jayden Daniels' rushing ability. I mean, set the school record for rushing yards by a quarterback, rushing touchdowns by a quarterback just a year ago. So, in your opinion, what's the balance of the offense? You think the offense is going to be run heavy? You think it's going to be a good mix of the two? What should we expect?
I'd expect just a complete, just a dynamic offense of balancing both. Just because, like you said, that rushing attack is going to be so potent. Logan Diggs is a tremendous addition for this team. The other day, I was asked, once fall camp starts and that gate opens to practice, where am I going to go first? Which position group am I going to go to? I said defensive backs is one that I want to check out very much. But I said I'm running over to go look at the running backs because I want to see just how deep they look. In the spring, there was nobody. You were working with, Trey Holly, your early enrollee, was your main guy. So I'm super intrigued with this running back group, and not to kind of stick on it for too long. I just want to see how they split the snaps and divvy it up because Logan Diggs is an absolute dog. He's going to give you everything you want. He's dynamic in the sense that he's a pass catcher and a running back. I want to see how healthy Armani Goodwin is. Josh Williams is also clear for fall camp. So I'm just intrigued to see how they divvy up these snaps, especially with Trey Holly taking a big, big jump during spring camp during his first time in Baton Rouge. Caleb Jackson is a freshman as well. So I just want to check out how this running back group goes. But to answer your question, do I think it's going to be more passing, more rushing, or is it going to be balanced? I see a complete balanced attack in Mike Denbrock's offensive system in 2023. You have your pass catchers. You have your dynamic running backs. How will they balance it? I think it'll be perfect 50-50.
Now, when you look at the wide receivers, I'm going to be completely honest here. I was dead wrong about Malik Neighbors. When he came out of high school, I thought he was a kid that, had a lot of talent, but I wasn't sure that he was going to be able, his skill set was going to be able to transition into the next level. And I was horribly mistaken. Malik Neighbors is absolutely that dude. He's back to lead this receiving core after 1,000 yards last year. You also look at a guy like Mason Taylor, who had a shining season as a freshman at tight end. You bring back Kyron Lacey. You've got Chris Hilton, Brian Thomas Jr. You bring in Shelton Sampson and Aaron Anderson. I mean, there's a lot of weapons there for Jayden Daniels to throw the football to.
Absolutely, head on. And another guy that I'm intrigued with, who I'll kind of hit on first, is true freshman Kyle Parker. I think that's a name that a lot of LSU fans need to get familiar with sooner rather than later. I think Kyle Parker, he was a kind of a low 4-star, kind of under-recruited, in my opinion, playing in Tech. I think it's a guy who's going to make an instant impact on this team as a whole, whether it's as a punt returner, working in special teams, or getting some snaps at wide receiver as well, but kind of just to stay on the wide receiver unit as a whole. Malik Neighbors is leading this team, and there's no question about it. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver taken in the 2024 draft if he decides to go that path. The Athletic came out with their mock draft, and he was number 2. And it's a perfect fit for him. He's competed at the highest stage. He's shined in the SEC. He's coming off of 1,000-yard receiving season. So just everything that he brings to the table is significant. And then Brian Thomas is going to take that next step this year, I believe, as well. Kyron Lacey has the potential to do the same. And then you kind of look at your youngsters, Shelton Sampson, as you mentioned, Jaylen Brown, the speedster from Florida, is an absolute. I mean, he's a maniac. He gets the ball in open space, and it's just really hard. It's hard to take him down. It's not Kayshon Boutte per se, but you give him the ball in open space, and you're going to struggle to take him down, and it's really not even close. And then, like I said, Kyle Parker as well. So you have a deep wide receiving unit. Mason Taylor showed flashes of his hands last season as well. So Jayden Daniels, does he have a significant amount of weapons? Absolutely. It's unbelievable.
Now, flipping over to the defense, I mean, look, I know the questions with the secondary are strictly because you just don't know what you have. These guys haven't played at this level, but up front, every team in the country should probably be very, very concerned. I mean, Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, Ovia Gofu, Omar Spates, Harold Perkins. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but that might be one of the scariest front sevens in the country.
No question about it. Mason Smith coming back off this injury is almost like adding a transfer portal player in a sense, because he played one series in 2022, went out with the torn ACL, and now he's coming in just refreshed, prepared to get in the system and work. And you putting him alongside Mekhi Wingo, it's scary for opponents, I'll tell you that much, because you have to double team one of them. You'll have Harold Perkins coming from the side as well, kind of working as a hybrid. I know they want to work him at inside linebacker as well, but you're going to see him all over the place. So just that front is very very scary for LSU football this upcoming season. It's going to be one of the top in the entire SEC.
Now, Zach, when you look at the schedule, is it wild to think that LSU could go into the Alabama game 7-1 or maybe even 8-0?
I don't think it's a wild thought at all. I think you're going to know exactly what you're getting for the rest. I think week 1 is going to set the tone for the entire season. And that's obviously kind of a casual take in a sense, because obviously your first game of the season is going to, give you a sense of what you're really dealing with. But I think for this LSU football program, it's going to tell the story. Are you going to be prepared? Is everything going to show in week 1? Florida State is no slouch. That is an absolutely incredible team who went in and dominated the transfer portal last offseason. I think, to answer your question, I don't think that's far-fetched in the slightest, but I think week 1 will tell that story, and I'll have more to say to you then, because that's when you know what you're going to be getting from this program. That's going to be an incredible game in Orlando.
What are your 3 biggest questions that you want to see answered between now and the start of the season?
You hit on it before, and it's something that I've been worrying about all off season, is that secondary. How are they going to look come week 1? I think fall camp's going to answer a lot of questions. A lot of fresh faces, transfers, freshmen. Who's going to get first team snaps? How's it going to work out? Zy Alexander's a guy that I've been looking at a lot. He came in from Southeastern. I love his game. He's taken first team reps. I want to see how he looks during fall camp and then transition into week 1, week 2, and just how his game goes to the biggest stage. I want to see how he looks then. Aside from the secondary, how are they going to divvy up the running back unit? It's something that I'm extremely intrigued about. I think Logan Diggs is your starter. That's your guy. But who's going to be 2? Is Armani Goodwin going to be healthy? Is he going to stay healthy? Can he get back on the field and stay on the field? How are they going to work in that sense? So the secondary, the running back group, and then, of course, like we were saying earlier, your offensive line. It could be your strongest unit. It's not one that I have a question mark around per se, but it's one that I just look at and think to myself, can they live up to the quote-unquote hype? You're bringing back 2 freshmen who started last year as sophomores now. You're returning several veterans. Can that offensive line live up to the hype, protect Jayden Daniels, allow the running backs to kind of get into their own? Because if they can get into their own and provide a balanced offense entirely, it's as scary as it gets. So the secondary, the offensive line group, and the running backs are 3 spots that I'm really looking at.
Zack Nagy of LSU Country, the Sports Illustrated Fan Nation site covering the LSU Tigers. Zach, appreciate your time as always, man. And football season's right around the corner. Enjoy the last couple of weeks of sanity, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. Let's do it again soon.
This has been another episode of the Miguez Mindset. As always, follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. And we'll be back next week talking all things New Orleans Saints as training camp gets underway in Metairie on Tuesday. This has been another episode of the Miguez Mindset right here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles.